Hello there and welcome to the Coffee with Colin, and thank you for joining me. This week I want to ask a question. Will a robot ever take over your job? Interesting question. A couple of things that I've attended and read during the last month or so has had me question this in my own mind. Back in the 60s there was a Stanley Kubrick movie, 2001, A Space Odyssey, some of you might remember it, and in it there was this all-pervasive artificial intelligence, a computer basically, that called HAL 9000. And HAL was one of those self-learning computers, so he could pick up on stuff and then he could make judgments, etc. And he had a mission, and his mission was to do whatever his mission was to do, but basically the computer decided over a period of time that the only way he was going to fulfill his mission, which he was programmed to do, was to kill all the humans. And of course that led to a whole dramatic thing, etc., etc., etc. Back in the 60s, I probably saw the movie in the 70s when I was a kid. Back in the 60s and early 70s, of course, that was all science fiction. But today it's a very different world. Today, you know, the smartphone, the FaceTime, the Skype, we can have conversations walking down the street, quite literally looking at somebody on the other side of the world. And of course, that is technology that back in the day, in the Star Trek days of Captain Kirk and Spock, we were in awe of, and today it's a given. And the kids of today know nothing else. But you know, back in the day it really was science fiction, and now it's science fact. And the question really is, where is it all headed? Moore's law states that every 2 years technology gets better, basically doubles in its capacity and halves in its costs. So technology is ramping up at a rate of knots. So if we think FaceTime is pretty cool now, no idea what the future is going to hold, but it'll be something very exciting, something we perhaps haven't even considered at this moment in time. And over the last month I've attended Pendulum Summit in New York, wonderful event, and there were two speakers at it, both of who touched on artificial intelligence, but both from very different perspectives. And at the same time I read a book in the last month called Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow. And in Homo Deus, the author takes us through the fact that as Homo sapiens, we have, because of our superior intelligence, we basically control the world. We've been the ones who've made subservient all the other animal life around us because, well, we're in charge. But technology is improving the whole time, and our friend, the author of Homo Deus, is suggesting that over time, you know, death is basically a technical challenge. Death happens because something wears out. We grow old and something wears out, but because technology is improving all the time, well then over time it should be possible, will probably be possible to actually regenerate stuff, which is already possible, and or replace anything and everything in the human body. So in theory, immortality is on the horizon sometime in the next century or the next 2 centuries, according to the author of Homo Deus. But the question then becomes, if a human becomes a superhuman, a bit like the computer HAL, and he's beginning to look around at all these lesser mortals, well then what type of decisions might these superhumans make? Perhaps it's possible in time to come that human life might become subservient to a superhuman life. It's certainly plausible. On the Pendulum stage we had Walter O'Brien. Walter is famous for, at age 13, having hacked into NASA's computers and having downloaded the plans of the space shuttle. No wonder he had the CIA knocking on the door. But anyway, Walter's now a high-tech guy, and he works for all these government agencies to make sure they're hack-proof, and they're Walter O'Brien hack-proof at that. And but he spoke about artificial intelligence, and he asked the question. He said, you know, it's changing all of the time. He said, when you pick up your device and you want to order your Uber, well then in the future the likelihood is the Uber will arrive, it'll be driverless, it'll have your Netflix channel on in the back, and you can sit there and comfort it. It'll bring you to wherever your destination is. It will already know where you're going, and it'll bring you to your destination, get you there in the quickest possible time, completely safe, and all without a driver. That's all to do with artificial intelligence. Really interesting. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. We know it's possible. It might also be free. Why might it be free? Because of the advertising opportunities. Advertising is all about eyeballs, and you know, some company has your eyeballs in the back of a driverless Uber watching Netflix, and they know exactly what your likes are. So it's quite possible that the world is heading in that direction. Also, there's voice recognition technology, as we know. There are self-learning artificial intelligences out there. So, you know, you pick up the phone to make a complaint, and a computer answers and very quickly detects through voice recognition technology what mood you're in, and then changes its mood and its responses to mirror what's going on with you, and basically talk you down off the ledge. but it's all done by computer. Is that possible? Of course it is. Is it likely to happen? Of course it is. And the real question is, what happens to the Uber driver of today? What happens to the receptionist of today if those jobs are going to be replaced by humans? What happens to a whole swathe of human life when their jobs are replaced? They must reinvent. And the question is, will they reinvent properly and quickly enough to take account of the new reality? Steve Forbes, the publisher of the famous magazine that bears his name, the Forbes magazine, he also was on stage. He also spoke about artificial intelligence, and he played it down big time. He said, look, we've had robots forever. Robots are basically labor-saving devices. And he said the wheel was the very first robot because it allowed humans do things easier and quicker. He mentioned the washer board, instead of back in the time cave people washing their skins on rocks, right? The washer board came in and they were able to scrub it and get more washing done in less time. Of course, that's been replaced in today's era by the washing machine. So we're familiar with robot technology. Robot technology is all about getting stuff done quicker with less human effort. But the question then becomes, when you look at artificial intelligence and those self-learning artificial intelligences, those ones that basically humans program at the beginning, and then after that it's up to the artificial intelligence itself to work out better responses to certain things. There is an ancient Chinese game called Go, and it's reputedly significantly harder than chess. And yet in 2017, a Google algorithm basically beat a Chinese grandmaster at this age-old game called Go. And it did so because the computer looked at what was going on, worked out the patterns, had certain algorithms obviously programmed in, but it also had self-learning capacity. And in doing so, it created scenarios and strategies that even the grandmasters themselves hadn't even considered, even though the game's been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So what's that telling you? What it's telling me is that Moore's law is absolutely right, and this thing is ramping up at a rate of knots, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon at all. So the question really is, what are we going to do to prepare ourselves for it? We shouldn't panic. That's the first thing. We shouldn't panic, right? It is an evolution. Likelihood immortality won't hit in your lifetime or mine. But could we have the immortal human, the constantly replacing, renewing human in time? I have to assume, based on what I'm saying, that that's possible. Are we likely to see unemployment? Likely, yes we are. Is it likely to be mass unemployment? That I don't know. I'll tell you why I don't know that, because the human race, in fairness to it, has had the ability to survive lots of things over the years, and this is something else that it needs to work with, adapt through, and survive past. And the question I'm going to leave you with is, do you think a robot will replace your job now or at any time in the future? It might be too early to affect your future, but it's not too early for you to start considering talking to your kids about it and your grandkids about it, and to start influencing the world, your world, in some shape or form, to take account of, to retrain for the world of the 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd century. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm, a little trip into the future. I hope as ever that you got something from it. If you did and you think somebody else would benefit, I'd be delighted if you'd pass the link on. If it's your first time here and you'd like more of this type of stuff, well then pop to the homepage, ColmOBrienMotivation.com. Leave me some details. I'll make sure you get a link like this on a weekly basis. Most importantly, please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next few days. And then equally as importantly, please come back next week and we share another coffee together and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. Between now and then, get some good coffee for sure, get some fresh air for sure, get some R&R. If you spend a lot of time with people, I recommend you spend some time alone. Conversely, if you spend a lot of time alone, I recommend you spend some time with people. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organised for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count, and I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colm. Sláinte. I really love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.